thank you so much for joining us again. My name is Tina Bolding, and I am the director of disasterready.org. And I'm really excited to speak with our guests today as we talk about a hot topic on project management in the humanitarian and development sector. So please join me in welcoming John Cropper, who is the co-founder of Pyramid Learning. John has 25 years experience in the sector, working for organizations like Oxfam Great Britain, where he was the regional program director in Latin America. He's also managed project management systems globally and managed a global program on gender and governance with projects across 17 countries. Since 2011, he's worked with a wide range of organizations to help them improve their project management capability. And some of you may not know, but he also helped write the Project D-Pro guide, which many may remember in its former name of PMD Pro. So over the last 9 months, I've truly had the wonderful privilege of working with John as he's helped Disaster Ready create our newest assessment-based certificate program called Project Management Essential Certificate. And I'm super pleased to share that as of today, currently, you can go out to disasterready.org for free and access the Project Management Essential Certificate. And towards the end of this live event, we're going to show you a brief clip so you can see what some of the trainings of the program look like. So you don't want to miss that. So welcome, John, and thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Tina. And you're right. It is exciting. I think it's absolutely fabulous that after 9 months, I've forgotten that it was 9 months, but that after 9 months' work, that I think it's a wonderful resource, and that this is being made available for so many people for free. And I really hope that I really do hope that this helps a lot of people just start accessing some of the tools and techniques of project management so that they could just make a difference to their projects.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's get started by talking about, obviously you've been in the humanitarian and development sector for really over 2 decades. And I can imagine you've worked on too many projects to count and have a lot of stories to share. So what's the story of one project and how it was managed that really stands out to you, and why?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I've seen a lot of projects and programs, local, national, regional, global, and I thought, well, just a couple of vignettes might help, because it really, I think, effective and efficient project management makes a huge difference. And I mean, just to give one example, where working in a very difficult conflict situation, a fairly standard project working with displaced populations, but it was a very dangerous situation with different warring sides. And when the project manager left, the different soldiers, militias, they called a truce so that people could attend his leaving party. And it just shows you how important stakeholder management is when something like that happens. And by itself, that doesn't make a difference to the project, but actually, it's a leaving party, so what? But you think all of the other stuff that happened, working with stakeholders, understanding them, understanding their priorities, being able to negotiate between them. And I think, and stakeholder management is something that is essential to project management. We get it, stakeholders can make or break your project. So that's a great example of getting it right. And then I thought another vignette is about flagging problems early. And working, in a latrine building project, which is quite similar to the one that is in the course. Just as we were getting ready to start, where we were going to be digging latrines in slums in extremely poor and vulnerable context, the funder said they had a change of policy and we couldn't build latrines, we had to rehabilitate them. The issue is there were no latrines to rehabilitate. That's the whole problem. And what was good is that the project manager flagged this quickly, and he came up to me as if you like, as the overall program sponsor, and that was flagged to me. They tried to solve it locally, but within a week, it meant that I was able to speak, to the donor representative, and we were able to get it solved quickly, and so that it didn't have an impact on the project. And again, I think around with project management, decision making is absolutely essential. So there's a little couple of vignettes of different projects that I've seen, Tina.
Oh, those are so interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard the one about the leave party, but certainly even in the development of this essential certificate, I know that I learned quite a bit. That was super helpful on stakeholder management. So that those were good examples. So personally, what motivated you? You spent many years helping organization improve their capacity for project management, but what motivated you to do that?
Well, I think a couple of things. Firstly, I spent so much time trying to deal with it having gone wrong somewhere. And then you start to realize, when we worked on the Project D Pro, on PMD Pro as it was, we realized that so many people in the sector were being asked to manage projects, and they had been given very few or no tools, training, techniques at all. And so how is this supposed to happen? Just through some kind of magic. And a lot of organizations say, oh yes, we're really good at project management. Why? Well, because we manage lots of projects. You may well be managing them really badly. There's no way to go about anything. And it's I think it's really unfair on the people who are, people are being set up to fail. And then in addition to that, I think that project management is such a transferable skill. If you learn how to make one project a little bit more effective or efficient, well, you can make another one more effective and more efficient. And I believe really passionately in helping smaller local organizations develop their capacity. And if we can work together, if we can find ways to help these smaller organizations manage projects better, they're going to be much stronger as a result. So yeah, that's why I like focusing on project and program management.
Right, and you know what that makes me think of? A term I've always liked this term, being consciously competent, meaning, you can say that you're good at project management and maybe you have had a successful project, but if you don't understand what you did right and you don't have a defined process and tools, how do you replicate it? How do you do it again to ensure your success? You want to be consciously understanding, what makes you good at it.
Somebody in the very early days of Project D Pro, this must have been, I can't remember, 2011 or 12, after a course, somebody said to me, I've managed projects for a long time, and I think I'm good at managing projects. I like it. But now I've got a much better understanding about why some projects were successful and why some projects weren't. And I thought that was a really wise reflection. And you're absolutely right. If we want to learn and replicate, otherwise we're just going to make the same mistakes again.
Right. So this is not a new concept. Project management's not. So why do you think it's so important in the context of humanitarian and development work?
Well, to be honest, I almost think there's a moral imperative to get this right, because the people we work with, whether we call them project participants, project beneficiaries, communities, whatever, it doesn't matter. Many of these people they've suffered enough. They don't need to suffer anymore because we screw up our project planning, project design, project implementation, or whatever. And I have seen a lot of cases where people have suffered. Why this is so important is that if we can easily make things worse instead of better. If we design the wrong project, if we don't listen to people, if we implement poorly, we can make things worse instead of better. So that's why I think it is so important that we get it right. I think we need to make sure that we're doing the right project and also that we're doing it in the right way.
Great point. Well, from your experience, what are I know it's hard to put a number on something, but what are the, let's say, the top 3 skills you think are really important for an effective project manager to have, and why?
It's a really hard question. Every time I make a list like this, I end up changing it. But I mean, I think looking at some commonalities, I don't think I've ever seen a really good project manager who was not an effective listener. And I know it may seem that when you talk about project management and skills, you're going to think about planning and risk management, and all of those are important. And I think to some extent, I feel that some of those are a given. You need to have some technical skills in project management, but technocratic project management isn't going to work by itself. You need to have the skills, I think the softer skills. So I don't think I've ever seen a project manager who was not a good listener. I think that good project managers are clear communicators. And, and this is to do with decision making, but it's also to do with knowing your own limitations. And this is quite a messy block. But I think that, project managers do need to know their own limitations, and they need to create clear decision-making mechanisms and communicate these so people know how decisions are being taken, because decisions not being taken or floating, waiting for someone to take a decision, that can be the kiss of death for a project. Right. And lastly, I'd go for integration. Project managers are the great enablers. How do we get project teams, finance teams, supply chain teams, human resources teams, monitoring and evaluation teams? How do we get all of these people to work together? Because that's what project management is all about. It's not about everybody working in a silo. It's how do we bring all of an organization's skills and competences and experiences to deliver what we have promised the communities we work with that we are going to do. And so that's why I think integration is a really important skill as well.
Those are good. And, it made me think of when you were talking about the listening skills and decision making and the difference between the technical skills, or the hard skills, sometimes they're called, versus, the soft skills. You and I had this conversation when we were building the training, yeah. And we embedded it in the program, because they're so important. You can't have one without the other. So it's interesting that 2 of them ended up on your top 3 list. So
I mean, so for example, I can plan. If I sit down and plan, okay, fine, but it's just my perception of it. However, if I listen to people, if I organize a participatory planning process, if I get more views, if I work with the people who are going to be delivering it, it's going to be a much better and a much more realistic plan.
Yeah, well, this is probably a good time for us to share a little bit more about why Disaster Ready created this Project Management Essentials Certificate. And so I will say that one of the key reasons is that year after year, our Disaster Ready learners tell us that project management is in the top 3 of their training needs. And they're very specific. They want to make sure that the training is self-paced so that they can take it when it's best for them. They can go back and repeat it. They want it to be specific to humanitarian and development work, because there's a lot of project management. Project management's not new. It's been around for a long time. There's a lot of different training, generic type training in the for-profit sector on it. And so they wanted something that was specific. And actually, and sometimes this still surprises me a little bit, but they wanted their knowledge to be tested. So when we say an assessment-based certificate, it's because there's a test at the end of it that helps you to demonstrate to yourself and to the organization that you work with or you're aspiring to work with, that you understand and can apply the concepts that you learned in the training. So that was a big part of it. They also wanted it in at least 4 key languages: English, Arabic, French, and Spanish. And then the other reason why we created the program was because people need the basics. You have to start with step 1. What are the basics of project management? But then as you continue, you want to advance your skills. You want to go beyond just the basics. And there really wasn't a very clear pathway on how to do that. So Disaster Ready reached out to an organization called PM for NGOs, who is the leader in the humanitarian sector for the development of project management methodologies, tools, techniques. And they are the creator, owner behind this guide that John and I have been mentioning, Project D Pro, or formerly known as PMD Pro. And so we utilized that content, and John, as our subject matter expert, then helped us design the certificate program to meet all those needs that I just listed. So that was really the why behind why this was created. So John, why don't you talk a little bit about who we created this program for?
So, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, with, the looking at, why this has been designed. And I do think that links to who, because, to start with, I'd say almost anyone. But the idea is, to be a little bit more specific than that, I think people who are, I say managing projects, but people who are working on projects, supporting projects, or might be working on or supporting a project. So it could be a humanitarian project, it could be a development project, it doesn't matter. And I also think that sometimes this humanitarian development split is not terribly helpful, as if you're working on a development project and there's an emergency humanitarian situation in your country, guess what? You're going to be working on
Great
that.
point.
So any of those people, but I would also go out to looking at where there's local organizations. You've got a whole range of organizations that might be involved in this. Now, it could be implementing partner organizations. You guys who are watching this, much better than I do who your network of stakeholders is. And I think here you've got a free resource. So the idea is that this can be shared with people so that you can start to get a common language to talk about projects with the people that you're working with. And so it's for all of these people, and people who want to learn about the basics, the core essentials of project management. Now, this may help with career progression for some people, which is fantastic. It may help with, if people are working on a project now, it may help, because something that I think is really important about this, the whole certificate, the program that we've got, is that you've got tools embedded that you can use them immediately. You don't need to wait. You don't even need to wait until you finish the course. You can start using stuff immediately. For some of you, maybe you've done some courses in the past. It may be a great refresher. And then I also hope that for people, it might be the first step on a, if you like, a ladder of learning more about project management. So, once you've done this, maybe actually this is really interesting. This is helpful. I want to learn more. So then you can go on to look at Project D Pro and that certification, and also learn more broadly. There's 60 years of research from private sector project management out there. And once you start to learn the terminology that you'll get through this course and then through doing Project D Pro, you're able to access that. And so I hope this, for many people, this will become the first step on a lifelong progression of learning more about project and program management.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that's a key benefit for the sector as a whole. When you talk about having consistent, familiar terminology, so that that helps a lot when we're talking about a risk register. if people say, oh, I know what a risk register is. I took
Yeah,
the project management essential certificate, or I am a professional DPRO certified international project manager. Both,
yeah,
it comes from the same content, so it's the same
yes,
terminology and methodology, and that's going to
absolutely.
be in service not just to the individuals and the organizations, but also to the sector as a whole. So, I like
And
to
it
say the
just,
right hand knows what the
yeah,
left hand's doing.
and it just makes life a bit easier. I mean,
Yeah.
if you join a new organization and you find that they've actually built some tools using this methodology, you know what it is. Or maybe you think actually the people you work with don't know this, you're able to build their capacity as well. But again, the more we've got some commonality about language, look, the way I look at it, a lot of project management is about getting the right people to have the right conversation at the right time and in the right way. And if you've got some common language and some common tools, a conversation is a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about what's different about this certificate program, because we've already mentioned there's other training out there. So what's different about this project management essential certificate?
Well, I mean, you've already mentioned quite a lot of things. They're always contextualized and so on. And I would focus, on the idea that I think that this is an essentials course. So there should be something for everybody here. I mean, it's about step one on the ladder, and I think that is important because there wasn't anything easily available and widely accessible
And
that
free.
said, okay, and that's certified, that said, look, here is something on the basics. So there are bits and pieces you could do. And to be fair, some organizations have developed entry-level training for their own staff. Fantastic. This is inclusive, it's not exclusive. But here we've got something that can be accessed online easily for free in multiple languages, that focuses on the basics. And so
Yeah.
for me, I would say that's the big one for me, so that there should be something for everybody. So that inside organizations, it's not, oh, project management, that's for the project stuff. No, this is for everybody.
Yeah.
Let's build community. That's what this is about.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, though, in addition to that, is that I really like the conversational style of the way the course was designed. So there's a individual Adesh, who is coming in, and this is his first opportunity to manage a project, and he's coached by Esther, who is a very seasoned, experienced project manager. And she takes him through the process and answers his questions. And along the way, it's focused on one
Yeah,
case study. And so that goes throughout the course. There is knowledge checks, but my other favorite thing is we call them branch scenarios, but let's just in layman's terms, it provides scenarios that ask you, well, what would you do in this situation? And when you make a choice, then you see the impact of your decision. It's not always pretty. And then you get to go back and choose a different option, and then see the impact of that decision. And I find that super helpful. That way you can get a better sense for, oh, I didn't even think about that.
yeah,
Um,
I completely agree. And again, I think it goes back to this. What we hope is that we've designed this in a way that's really practical and helpful for people. So again, I mentioned earlier, it's actionable. You've got tools you can use immediately. And then something else that I literally just thought of, but with the model of having Esther as, if you like, as a coach, for people who are doing this, who then want to use some of the material to share with others, it actually gives them maybe a model for how to actually take some of the tools and the content and work with others and share and spread. I hadn't
that's a
even
great
thought
point.
about that, but maybe
Yeah, I
that's a
hadn't
model for
either.
people.
No, that's good. That's good. Well, let me just say, for those of you that are already working in the humanitarian development sector, or you're aspiring to, John and I truly encourage you to go out and complete the Project Management Essential Certificate Program. You can access the training by logging into disasterready.org, or you can create a free account. Once you're logged in, you can click just right from the main page. You can click on Project Management Essential Certificate, or you can search for it in the search bar. And then we've also put the link in the chat for this live discussion. But before we play the clip, so that you can see examples of some of what the course looks like, I did want to say thank you, John, so very much for talking with me today. And thanks to everyone for joining us. Just keep in mind that the preview has been edited to show you what the course looks like, including the tools, the scenarios, and the knowledge checks. And so I've always wanted to say this, but Jackie, please roll the clip.
Thank you, Tina. I will right now. As I'm getting it ready, I just want to address maybe a few common questions we've received in the chat today.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yeah. So it is available for free today. It's in English now, but we are working on Arabic, French, and Spanish. So those are coming soon, and we're the best way to find out when those are available is to sign up for Disaster Ready and follow our marketing emails, or pay attention to our Facebook page. We will let you know when other language versions are available. And like John said, it's online. You can start today and you can take as long as you want to finish it, is completely at your own pace. I want to thank everybody for watching. We had people from Zambia to Iraq, from Bangladesh to Liberia. So a lot of people joined us from all over the world. And that's that. So like Tina said, the clip I'm about to play is an edited version of the course to show you a little bit of everything. So thank you for joining.
Project manager must ensure that the triple constraint triangle always stays in balance. The scope is the work we need to do within the parameters of time and costs. If we cannot achieve the defined scope in the given time frame, or if the resources are insufficient, then the triangle is not balanced. These constraints are interdependent. Whenever one of these is restricted or extended, the others will also need to be adjusted. In the case of the Delta River project, if you plan to provide access to quality latrines to 1,000 households, and suddenly the number of beneficiary households increases to 1,500, you may consider that the project scope has increased.